everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be an information video on how to go to DisneyLand Paris, mainly from the northeast. It's harder to go to DisneyLand Paris the further up the country you live, and I looked into a lot of different ways to go. I also asked on Instagram before I went on different suggestions that people had on how to go for cheaper, and I managed to come up with a lot of different ways to go with different prices. I had a lot of problems when I was trying to organise for me and my boyfriend to go to Disneyland. It's just so much more expensive because there's further to travel, it's not as convenient, there's more times to take into place, like, you'll see what I mean. But I managed to figure out a couple of different ways to go, and from people watching my vlogs and just knowing that I managed to go for a couple of days, I've had a lot of questions on how I went. So I did say I'd make this video, and here I am making this video. So I just want to say now, this is a disclaimer, I am not an expert. I don't work for any of these companies that I'm going to mention. I don't know the ins and outs of them. I have not travelled with any of them or had any experiences with any of them. None of them are paying me to say this. From my research, this is what I found out about how we can go to Disneyland if you live further away than like southern England. So I have had obviously like one holiday with one of these coach companies that I'm going to talk about, but other than that it's all just kind of information. So I'm going to give you prices and tell you how to go about it, but if you go with one of these companies and don't have a good experience or can't work something out or the prices are different, don't blame me, it's got nothing to do with me. I'm just trying to help you out. This is what I figured out, and this is probably the best ways to go to Disney that I can figure out. Like, basically a lot of research went into this, and I don't want to get in trouble for this, and I don't want companies to be like, oh, you've mentioned us but we actually do this. Like, this is just what I know. I'm not an expert, and I'm making this video because a lot of people have asked. So let me explain to you the different ways on how I can think to go to Disneyland. It isn't just for the northeast, it is for everybody probably in England and Scotland. The price and ease of doing these ways are going to be cheaper and easier the further down the country you live. So I'm going to give prices for the northeast of England, but if you live higher up the country than Scotland, it's going to cost more and it's going to need more time and planning. If you live further down the country, it's probably going to be cheaper and it's going to be a lot easier. So I'm going to give northeastern kind of companies and prices, but I'm also going to explain how to do it and prices for other ends of the country. I hope that makes sense. Let's get into it, because I have a lot wrote down in my little notebook here, my squishy notebook. Squishy! And yeah, so I've got quite a few different pages here of information, and I need to get it all out because it's all like, ugh. And if you can hear humming in the background, I've got my laptop on so I can see prices. And yes, these prices will change. These are just what I found this morning. So you probably can watch this video any time of year and from any part of England and Scotland, but bear in mind prices will be different. So I will compare things as I go, like prices, and I'll try and compare the different ways of going with each other. But if there's parts that you want to see, like if you particularly know that you don't want to go by flying or you do want to go by coach, I'll try and put that below on the times where I start talking about them, but I will just be comparing as I go anyway, so it might be useful to watch the whole thing. But if you know you want to go by coach, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be talking about coach last because that's how I went and that's probably how I'll be going in the future. But I will give you a summary at the end on how I feel and which ones I think are best, although you'll probably get a feel for that as I go anyway. By the way, when I'm talking about all these prices, like package prices, I'm doing those for 2 people. You can message me on here if you have questions, on my Instagram, on my Twitter, on my blog, and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. I do have a lot of other things going on in my life, so if I don't get back to you straight away, I promise I'll probably have seen it, or if it's been a while and I haven't replied, then I haven't seen it, and just kind of remind me, like, Sarah, you know, I asked you this question. I'll be like, oh, sorry. But yeah, I'm going to try and answer anyone's questions. Like I said though, I do have other things going on other than just making YouTube videos, so if I don't answer straight away, I'm busy and I'm probably doing a little bit of research into your answer as well if it's not a really simple one. So feel free to ask me questions, but please, like wait for a reply if I haven't answered it straight away. And also get some things going below as well so that other people can see different ways to go, or if people have more information than me or correct information or just anything, get a little conversation going below. That would be really helpful for everyone. Let's get this video started. Get a notepad, get a pen, get a cup of tea, because this is probably going to be a long one. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to talk about flights first. So if you are travelling from Newcastle, the best way is by Air France. Now if you type in Newcastle to DisneyLand Paris into Google, Air France flights will come up straight away, and then you don't have to go onto their website, it'll just take you through it. If you're going from further down the country, like if you're going from a London airport, there is British Airways. Further up the country, you're gonna have to go to London or to a connecting flight. So if you lived in Scotland, you might need to get a flight to Newcastle or London and then a further flight on to the airport in Paris. The airport you want to go to is the Charles de Gaulle. A return flight to Paris, that Charles de Gaulle airport, is going to cost £136 return, but it can also go all the way up to £260. It depends on the time of year. So that 260 was on the 29th of October, but the 136 was 2 days later on the 31st. So that's return, that's not just one way. Flights are going to be cheaper down from London, I would imagine, and probably a little bit more if you're going to have to get connecting flights from up in Scotland. So you can easily go to your local airport and go to the airport just near Disneyland, and then from the airport, I believe there's a train. And I think it's around €6 for a return back to that airport. And there is actually a video on YouTube on how to get your tickets and where the ticket machine is and where the train is. And then there is a magic shuttle bus, which you book online before you go. It takes 45 minutes, and it said that it was €20. Their kids are €16. Once you get to the Charles de Gaulle airport, you can book that online before you go and get the magic shuttle, or you can get a taxi, which costs around €60. So yeah, if you were going to be going by flying, then obviously you're going to have to book your hotel, and you're going to have to book your tickets if you don't have an annual pass. You're going to have to get some sort of transfer between the airport and Disney, so one of those three I just said. So I looked into booking some hotels with flights, if that's how you want to go. So I was looking at a company who I found to be one of the cheapest if you're going to be booking your flights, and it's Travel Magic. I've looked at reviews and apparently they are quite good and they are a genuine company. And I was looking on their website this morning and it's really good prices as well, and it does include flights from Newcastle. There's flights from all over the country as well. So I'm going to kind of give you dates from October time, because those are the 2 dates that I'm looking at, and it gives you a couple of months to plan things. And it was looking at for 2 people for 1 night to the Santa Fe, including your flights, hotel for 1 night, and park entry and breakfast at the Santa Fe, was £550 for 2 people in the Santa Fe, and £565 in the Cheyenne. So that was 1 night. For 2 nights it was actually cheaper, and it was £542 for the Santa Fe, but the Cheyenne didn't have a price. So I rang them up, and she said that all of the prices for October Halloween season are, like all of their allocated flights are actually fully booked. So what it would have cost me to book Santa Fe for 2 nights and 3 days for the hotel and park entry would have been £430, and that's without your flights because their flights are booked up. So she reduced it down from £542 to £430 to get rid of the prices. So you can do that with them and then book your own flights if you've got them cheaper. But then when I looked at return flights, it was going to be, for those dates, for the October time, £260 return for 1 person. So the £430 was for 2 people, and the £260 was for 1 person. So you're kind of looking at almost £1,000 by doing that individually. So for flights, I still think it's quite expensive. If you were to book the hotel separately, I looked on the Disney website, and for 1 night it was 325 people for 1 night for 2 people, and that was 1 night in the hotel, 1 breakfast, like in the hotel for 2 people, and 2 park entry tickets, like for 2 days. So that was $325. So if you book so you can either book it as a flight deal with Travel Magic. So that's your hotel, your park entry and your flights. And they are quite good prices from what I can see. But at the minute all their flights are booked up for Halloween, so you'd have to do that separately. Or you can book your flights and then you can book your hotel separately, which would be, like I said, $325 kind of average you're looking at for 2 people in the Shen over Halloween. So already it's coming to about £900,000 to go by flying from the northeast for 1 or 2 nights around the Halloween season. I think that's a general kind of price. If you're going to go in November after fireworks, it might be a bit cheaper, and then their flights are probably going to be available with Travel Magic. But if you book everything individually, then that's how much you're probably going to pay for a hotel on the Disney website, so £325. You could go with an associated hotel. Associated hotels are hotels that are not on the Disney site, they're not as close, but they are just around the corner. So there's free shuttle buses to Disney. They're not Disney themed and you don't get extra magic hours, but they are cheaper. So you could book with an associated Disney hotel such as the B&B Hotel, Magic Circus, Dream Castle or the Kairad Hotel. And that would be a little bit cheaper. So then you would just pay for your flights, like an associated hotel. But the associated hotels do not come with your park entry, so then you're going to have to be buying that. And if you pay for 1 day in the park, you may as well get the cheapest annual pass because it's only a few pound more, and then that'll get you in for 2 days. And then if you were going to continue to just book associated hotels and flights every time you go, then your park entry is going to get you in for, I think the lowest one is 275 days a year. So that would save you a bit of money. So once you've paid for your annual pass, you'd just be booking your flights, so round about £200 for a return for 1 person. And then your hotel, which the associated ones you'd have to check how much they are and what deals you can get. But the Shen for 2 people for 1 night was $325, but that did include your park entry, so you could look into without park entry. And I know that if you have an annual pass, it's also 10% off staying in the hotels, the Disney hotels. So you're probably looking at cheapest if you already have an annual pass, £260 for your flights, and then a couple of hundred for your hotel, so £400 to £500. And then if you go with someone like Travel Magic, the deals can be about £500, but then they go up to £700 on the 29th of October when it's busy because it's Halloween. So that's 1 night in the Shen. So it just depends on what hotel you want to stay in, if you have an annual pass, if you can get a package deal with a company, or if you're going to be buying it all separately. And don't forget about your connecting from the airport to Disney. And you're going to have to check all your times and make sure that they all link in together with your flights, your shuttle bus, and getting to Disney and back. So you have to do all that. If you go with a package company, then they're going to do all that for you. Okay, so personally, I don't think I'll ever fly because it's just going to be, unless I can get really cheap flights and I can get a cheap deal with a hotel, and I have an annual pass because I know I'm going to be going a lot that kind of way, then that's where you're going to save money going that way. Obviously further down the country, if you already pretty much live in London, then you can just get the flights, which I think are probably going to be a bit cheaper, and then it's going to be the same kind of prices for your annual pass and hotel. And then further up the country it's going to cost more because as far as I know, there aren't direct flights to Paris from Scotland. There could be, but you're going to have to pay for an extra flight to either Newcastle or London and then carry on, and then it's the same price for your hotel and your annual pass and your shuttle bus and things. So flying, that's the kind of prices you're looking at. So that's flying. So next I'm going to talk about Eurostar. Now, if you go Eurostar if you live further down the country, you're just going to need a short train ride or even an underground ride, or I don't know, maybe you could even walk to the Eurostar, I don't know, but it's not going to be so much so that it's going to add a massive price to your kind of journey to Disneyland. So the hotel and park is going to be exactly the same kind of prices as the flights. You're going to have to book them all separately, or you can go on a package deals and book it that way. So there are companies that you can pick Eurostar hotel packages, and then you'll get your kind of park entry into that. So I had a look at the Eurostar company this morning. They also do package deals to Disneyland, And for their Eurostar hotel and park entry for 2 nights and 3 days this morning was £726. So that's going to be the same for everybody. But if you live further up the country, you have to get to the Eurostar first, and you have to make sure that you get there early or you're going to lose time in the park. So when I was looking at Eurostar prices, Eurostar for one day on the 29th of October was £145 return. So you could book the Eurostar separately, and then the hotel, and then the park if you didn't want to do the package holidays. Package holidays, you do normally save a bit of money. You don't need a transfer from the Eurostar though, that goes straight to Disneyland. So the only problem us Northerners are looking at are getting the train to the Eurostar. So the earliest train from say Durham train station is after 6 o'clock. So the earliest I can get into London is around 9 o'clock, so I'm looking at getting like the 10 o'clock kind of Eurostar, and I think there's one at 10:40. So you're not going to get into the park till 2 o'clock. So that's not great if you are wanting to go for the day. If you want to go Eurostar for the day to Disneyland, then you aren't going to get there till 2 o'clock. You'll have approximately 5.5 hours in the park, and then you're going to have to get the Eurostar back, say about 7ish, to get back to London for about 9-10ish, because the last train back to Durham is just after 11 o'clock, and then or just before 11, and then you will get into Durham for around 1 o'clock in the morning. So you're looking at 6 in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning, 5.5 hours in the park. So if you're going for a day Eurostar, that it's going to cost £145, and then you're going to have to pay your entry. So when people have the annual passes and they live down south, it's a lot easier for you. You can get really early Eurostar, but we have to get to the Eurostar first, unless you pay for a hotel overnight in London the night before. More prices. So if you get a package Eurostar, obviously it's going to be cheaper than getting the Eurostar, the hotel and the park entry, because we still need to get the train down there. But for you people down south, you're probably only looking at £726 if you book with like Eurostars for 3 days, 2 nights, because you don't need to pay for the train. Further up the country, it's going to cost you more because your train fare is going to cost more. You could fly to London and then get the Eurostar. So I would have to pay for the Eurostar hotel park package on Eurostar's thing, £726. And then for the train, when I looked this morning for October, it was coming up at £68, which is really good. But if you want to go last minute, it's around £130 on the day. And that was a return 65. So that was for 2 people, that's 726. So it's going to be about another 140 for your 2 return train fares. So again, you're looking at almost £1,000. If you go for the day, you're looking at, for 2 people, you're still looking at about £400 for the day, and that's without your park entry. That's just Eurostar and train for 2 people. Okay, so that's Eurostar, and that's flying. As you can see, flying's a little bit easier because you just get you get to the airport. Eurostar is really hard. You have to work out the timings to get to the Eurostar first and then go on from there. But they both come at the same kind of pricing. So flying's probably going to be a little bit easier than Eurostar. But if you don't want to fly, then train in Eurostar from further up the country is the way to go. But they come up at about the same prices, around £800 I'm going to say. So you could drive. I looked this morning and it is around, where is it? How many miles was it? Oh, here we go. So from the northeast, it was around 542 miles to Disneyland if you drove. So that's probably going to be around £80 to £100 petrol. Then your ferry for a return is around £66 if you returned the next day. And then you're going to have to bear in mind that you're driving yourself. You'll need regular stops. You'll probably spend more on coffee. You still need to buy your park entry. You still need to buy your hotel, which are going to be the same prices as above, if that makes sense. And then you're going to have to pay £20 a day for parking. You could stay off-site and stay in a campsite. First 2 times I went when I was younger, I just went on a French camping holiday, and we just went for the Disney for the day. So drove into Disney really early, paid for parking, paid for day entry. That does mean though you can't really stay for Dreams unless you don't mind driving back to wherever you are staying really late. When I went last, at the beginning of this month, September, Dreams was on at 10 till about 20 past 10 by the time you get out. When I say £80 to £100 for petrol, I mean like a kind of medium-sized car. That's how much I think it would be to drive to France in my medium-sized car. Mine is a 1.2, if that helps anyone. There's also the Euro Tunnel. Again, depends on whether you stay on site, how many days entries, blah blah blah. But instead of your £66 return ferry fare, you're going to have to pay for return Euro Tunnel fare. And the ferry price is the same, doesn't matter how many people are in your car, it just goes by car. So that's going to be a bit cheaper as well than buying like 5 flight tickets if you're a family of 5. So it is cheaper probably to go by car because you're only paying around £100 for petrol, and then your ferry, which is about £60 return, or Euro Tunnel, and then it's going to be the same kind of prices for your hotel and Disney Park entry if you were doing it any other way other than like package deals, because they're obviously going to be cheaper and include everything. I hope this is all making sense. So the last way of going to Disneyland that I'm going to talk about is going by coach. I went by coach. I'm just going to say it now. It's cheaper and easier. It just is. Everything's included basically, apart from your lunch and tea time, like dinner time, tea time meal on the evening. When you book a coach holiday, it will include your coach down to the ferry, your ferry crossing, your coach to Disneyland, your hotel for however many nights, your breakfast for however many mornings, and your park entry. Obviously it can cost just as much as going the other ways, but if you listen to the tips I'm about to say, it can be quite cheap. So there's 3 companies that go from the northeast of England. They also do go from higher up the country and lower the country. The higher up the country, the less availability there is for dates, so I'd recommend ringing them. And the lower the country, there's also more companies that do this kind of trip. But these are the 3 that go from all over the country, including the northeast, one of which I went with. The prices are the same, doesn't matter where you travel from in the country, I already looked at that. So I went with a company called National Holidays. They don't do Disney hotels, they only do associated hotels, as far as I can tell from the website. So that's the B&B, the Kyra, the Dream Castle, and the Magic Circus. So there's a free shuttle. The B&B did actually have a little Disney shop in it as well. They all include breakfast in the deals as far as I know. You don't get the extra magic hours, you don't get the Disney characters around the hotels, and the hotels aren't particularly Disney themed. So National Holidays pick up from the northeast. I didn't realise that they actually pick up from Darlington, so that when we booked it, I'm kind of in between Newcastle, Darlington, Sunderland. Pretty easy, I could go to any of them. But I booked Newcastle, I just thought it would be the easiest. I know Newcastle really well. I mean, I do know all of them, but I don't know, I just picked Newcastle. So we went from Newcastle, and we got picked up at 3 in the morning, and the people from Darlington didn't actually get picked up till nearly 5. So next time if I book with them, I'm going to pick Darlington, because it's just the other direction for me, same kind of distance, and then it means I get an extra 2 hours in bed. So really try and have a look through. I was worried when I was booking it that it was going to sell out because it was such a good deal, so I was like Newcastle and clicked, and I mean it was fine, but on the way back we did actually get off at Darlington. You're allowed to do that as well, as long as you arrange to get yourself home and don't blame the company. He was like, yeah, as long as you're okay with getting off earlier. So it was easier for someone to pick us up from Darlington. So National Holidays do pick up from Gateshead, Middlesbrough, Darlington, Newcastle, Durham I'm pretty sure, and basically the northeast. They all of these coach companies do go higher and lower up the country as well, so check them out. When I went with them, I did notice as well that the prices are really cheap. So for example, we went from Newcastle, we had 4 days, so what it was a day travelling, night in the hotel, breakfast, whole day of Disneyland, night in the hotel, breakfast, whole day of Disneyland, night in the hotel, breakfast, whole day of travelling back. So it's really good because you're not having to travel before you go into the park, or being in the park all day and then travelling back. You get 2 full days in the park and you get 2 full days like travelling, and that was £214 for everything apart from your lunch and tea. And if you're not even bothered about buying anything while you're there, then that's all you have to pay for on top of that £214. Now I will say that it was more than that a few days earlier. It was $279, which is still a lot cheaper though. This is per person than all of those other ways of going. So what I do, which might not always work though, so if you want to book a holiday with National Holidays, book it. But if you can wait, if you keep checking the page about a week before, the price drops. and it only drops for a couple of hours to a day and then it disappears even if the coach is not full. And that's when we booked it, and we got it about £80 cheaper. So if the coach is not full and the holiday is still up a few days before the holiday is due to go, then you should be able to book it cheaper. But if it books up and goes, don't blame me. Like, if you want to go and you don't care about saving £80, like, you definitely want your space on that coach, book it. So watch for price drops with that company. There's also a company called Gold Crest that also go from the northeast. They stay in on-site Disney hotels and the associated hotels. They're similar prices to National Holidays. There's also Ledger Holidays. They also travel from the northeast. When I was looking, I found them to be slightly more expensive, but if you look at dates, you can still get it just as cheap as National Holidays or Gold Crest. The Ledger Holidays are, as far as I can tell, one associate hotel, which is Magic Circus, and the rest are Disney hotels, like the Cheyenne, Santa Fe, so like Gold Crest, whereas National Holidays is no Disney, it's only associated. So the Ledger, to stay in the Cheyenne for 2 days and 3 nights, 2 people from Durham, was £618, so that's everything apart from your lunch and dinner. That's already £400 cheaper than going flying from the northeast. Do you know what I mean? And it's like the National Holidays one me and my boyfriend got for just over 400. That's even cheaper. That's a company called Harry Shaw, which don't go from the northeast, but they do go from Woodall Services. And when I went with National Holidays, what they did was, there was 3 coaches, and we got on one, and it did all the stops up where we live, and then went to Woodall Services, and there was another 2 coaches there. And we all got on the coach that was going to Disney, and the people on these coaches got on whichever coach they needed to go to, if that makes sense. And then that coach took us to Disney. Our driver was our kind of chauffeur. He did all our, like, letting us know what was happening, giving us updates on the mic. He was lovely as well, he had a good sense of humour, and there was water on board, there was a toilet on board. He took us into the park the next day to get us all of our tickets rather than us all meeting him there on a shuttle bus. So he was really good, so I definitely recommend that. Like, literally everything was taken care of. So we met at Woodall. So what you could do, Harry Shaw is a lot cheaper, but because he doesn't come up the northeast. So for a couple of, I think it was for about the same kind of time, like 4 days, 2 whole days in the park sort of thing, Harry Shaw was only like £180 when I looked this morning for the same kind of deal. So that's already like quite a bit cheaper, I think £100 cheaper if you pay the full price for like National Holidays. But he only, like, the closest place to the northeast, like the rest of yous are fine further down the country to just pay that price. Up Scotland you're probably going to have a problem going with Harry Shaw, go with the other ones. But the northeast, if you can get to Woodall Services, which is only a 2-hour drive, then you can go a lot cheaper. You have to be kind of in Woodall Services for around 8 o'clock in the morning. So if someone can drop you off, you'd only need to leave the house at 6 o'clock. And then if you, on the way back, you'll probably be back at Woodall for about 7. So someone could pick you up around 7 and be back for 9 o'clock. You could give them, say, £20 petrol money each way, which is only £40. So you've still only paid about £200 for 2 people, between like the coach, the holiday, and then the petrol. Do you know what I mean? So it's cheaper to go with Harry Shaw, but you'd have to get to Woodall Services. Lastly is Coach Holidays. They're not a coach company in themselves, they're a third party who deal with the 3 companies that do go from the northeast that I said before. So they do National Holidays, Gold Crest and Ledger Holidays comparisons on their website, and they tend to do them cheaper. So when I looked this morning, it was coming up, I think, with Gold Crest on their website for around £309 for a holiday, but with Coach Holidays, if you book through them, it was coming up at £279. So if you're going to book any of those holidays and it comes up on the Coach Holiday website, you're going to get it cheaper, but I don't think it displays all of them. The Christmas ones, for example, with National Holidays, weren't coming up, so some ones you will have to book through the first party coach company. There's also 1-day park visits through coach that you can do with Gold Crest. It's classed as a 1 day, but it's actually 3 days. What happens is it's £139 to go from the northeast to Disney for 1 day on the coach, and like I said, that's everything apart from your lunch and your dinner. And I think that's really good because that's only 1 day as well, so we're only going to need maybe €15 for your lunch maximum, Same, like maybe a bit more for your tea if you want a bit more of an extravagant tea, but you could spend a lot less if you just wanted some chips or if you took some food. So it's going to be a really late night coach ride, say 6 o'clock the day before, I'm not sure on exact times, and you will literally get to Disney, like drive through the night, get to Disney the next morning really early for park opening. You'll have the whole day, this is from like the northeast, so you drive on the coach the whole day in Disney. I don't know if you stay for Dreams, you might not, and then after the park closes, I'm guessing after Dreams or maybe just before, you drive all the way back through the night and get the ferry, and you're back up in the northeast for really early the next morning. So you can do Disney for one day with Gold Crest for £139 from the northeast, but it does mean you are travelling through the night there and through the night back, and you're going to be tired on that coach ride back. So if you're okay with sleeping on coaches, then go for it. I don't know if I'll ever do that because I'm really tired after Disney. I have ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, so sleeping on a coach after a long day in the park probably wouldn't be very comfortable for me. But if you can deal with that, then you can go to Disney for a day from the northeast for £139 with Gold Crest. So as you can see, going by coach, everything's booked for you, everything's in one package, and it's a lot cheaper. And I didn't mind going by coach. Our coach driver was great. We had a toilet on board, he did stops every 2 hours. Once we got into France on the way there, he didn't stop, but we got straight to the hotel, and he said if anybody really wants to stop, just let us know and I'll stop. The toilet only stank once on the way back after breakfast. Somebody went and used the bathroom, which I thought was pretty bad on them, because half an hour later we stopped at the services. I mean, surely he could have held it in, but he clearly didn't, which was quite disgusting. But it only stank for about an hour, and then it was fine. So apart from that, the coach ride was fine. Make it part of your trip. I took my tablet and watched a movie on it with my boyfriend. I took my Game Boy, I took a colouring book, my boyfriend took his book. So you can really make it part of the trip, and the ferry's really fun as well. So like, I definitely recommend going by coach. It does add like an extra day on and a day after, but you can do it less as well. You can do like a day travelling, 2 days in the park, and then on the last day drive back through the night, which is going to be a bit cheaper. Like, there's different ways to do it, but I prefer the full days travelling. It means you get a good night's sleep before and after like each day of park entry, so that you can just be on the coach on the way back without being exhausted. So as you can see, I prefer to go by coach. It's cheaper, I like it. Of course I'd like to fly or try the Eurostar, but it's too much of a faff on. I think coach is going to be cheaper for everyone, no matter where you are in the country, and they seem to go anywhere in the country as well, and those are the companies that go from the northeast. There's way more down south companies, and there's probably a few others that I don't know about that go higher up the country, like Scottish companies, but I would recommend those 3 companies that I said, and then Coach Holidays to compare them, or Harry Shaw if you can get the Woodall services. They were really cheap, but I'm pretty sure that's the highest up the country that they go. Eurostar and Train is going to be a bit more complicated to work out timings. It's going to be the same as flying prices, so up to £1,000. Driving is going to be cheaper, but more of a faff on. I'd rather get the coach. So those are all the ways that I say to go from Disneyland. So, quick summary. If you fly, it's going to be for 2 people, for kind of 2 nights or 1 night, 2 day entry, like Disney hotels or associated, it's going to be around £700 to £1,000 around. Same with the Eurostar, because you're going to have to add your train fare on if you live further up the country. But if you don't, then it's going to be a bit cheaper than flying, getting the Eurostar if you live further down the country. So prices going down. So flying, Eurostar. I'd probably say that driving is cheaper than coach, but it's more of a faff on unless you like driving. And then coach is the cheapest and the easiest anywhere in the country, especially for us northerners. Everything's in that package. I mean, Disneyland for 2 full days, including everything but your lunch and dinner, £214 I got it for, and £214 for my boyfriend. You cannot complain about that price. You cannot get flights that cheap. You cannot get Eurostar that cheap. You cannot do the ferry that cheap. from like driving from up in the northeast. So I recommend coach, I recommend national holidays. Goldcrest looks good, Leisure Holidays looks good, National Holidays seems to be the cheaper than Goldcrest. Try Coach Holidays to compare them, but they won't have all of the holidays on that those three companies do. And if you can get the Woodall services, I recommend Harry Shaw. I've looked online at all the companies that I've mentioned and the reviews seem good for all of them. I would say that I personally, when I went with National Holidays, like loved the coach company, loved everything about it. I wish National Holidays stayed on site, but I get like Disney hotels, but I'm guessing that's why they're a little bit cheaper than Goldcrest and Leisure Holidays, because they do more Disney hotels, although Goldcrest does do off-site like associate hotels as well. The B&B hotel that I stopped in, it was fine for 1 or 2 nights, and I would do it again if it was the dates that I really wanted to go on and it was a good price, but there was things in the hotel that weren't quite there, like there wasn't a kettle, there wasn't a mirror at the desk, the staff weren't very helpful. If you're a vegan, the food is really bad, there's nothing for breakfast, not even fruit. So now that I'm more prepared, I could stay there again. I would take my own kettle, I would take more food for breakfast, and I know the closing and opening times for the shop. If you get stuff sent back to your hotel from the park, like merchandise, because you don't want to carry it around, the associated hotels are included in that. But if you watch my merchandise haul, you will see me explain how I had a faff on with that service at my hotel. So I would stay at Hotel B&B again, but that's the cheapest associated hotel. Then there's the Kairad, which seems 10 million times better. Has a kettle, has a bigger buffet breakfast from what I've read. So if you can go with the Kairad with National Holidays, that's the one I would recommend. The only bad thing that I can think about, I mean it's not really bad, but the only down thing to going with a coach holiday is that you have to go when there's a coach holiday. So if you drive or fly or Eurostar, then you can go when you want, if that makes sense, like on the date that you want, or you obviously just have to book certain times. But if you go by coach, there is only available holidays on the dates that they put up. So for instance, I wanted to go on the 28th of October so that it fit in between me and my boyfriend's university courses, but that day between all 3 of them companies that I looked at is not available as a holiday, and as far as I can see, there isn't any holidays between the 5th and the 23rd of December, so you have to go right at the beginning of December or over Christmas. So you do have to bear that in mind when you go on coach holidays. It's when they want to go, if that makes sense. My boyfriend just brought me this iced latte home. I need this. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I've spoke about everything. If anybody knows any other ways to go, or any information that I've said wrong, or any questions that anybody may have, feel free to comment below or ask me. I'm really sorry if this has been a really confusing video, or if I haven't made something very clear. If enough people ask questions, I will do a Q&A video on it. I'm not a travel agent, this is just a hobby, spare time sort of thing, so please don't expect everything to be correct or for me to get back to you really quickly. I will try my best to get back to you and with the right information. I hope all this is right. It shouldn't really go out of date either whenever you watch this video, because prices aren't really going to change from what I've said. Like I've already said, like I've give kind of Halloween kind of prices, so it's going to be a bit cheaper at other times of the year. It's probably going to be more at other times of the year, like Christmas. Although when I was looking, Halloween seems to be the most expensive time of the year at DisneyLand Paris. So yeah, I feel like I've got so much information out, but I don't know how it's come across. I hope that video was interesting, I hope it made sense. I've never done a video like this before. I'm really worried about it not making sense, or people getting angry, or companies, or if I've said something wrong. But anyway, compose. I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.